Hurlstone Manor stood in the green heart of West Sussex, an ancient house with tall chimneys, long corridors, and portraits of stern-faced Musgraves looking down from dark oak walls. Sir Reginald Musgrave, the young master of the estate, took pride in keeping his household in perfect order. His cleverest servant was Brunton, the butler, a tall, handsome man who had studied at college and spoke like a gentleman. Everyone said no one could polish the silver or manage a dinner better than he. Yet lately something had changed. Brunton had grown pale and restless. He walked at night when the others slept, and more than once the maid saw a light moving behind the curtains of the library after midnight. Sir Reginald noticed that Brunton's hand shook when he served wine, and that his eyes seemed to hold some secret worry. At first the master tried to ignore it, but one night curiosity overcame him. "I will see for myself what keeps that man up so late," he murmured. When he crept toward the library door and peered through the crack, he saw Brunton bending over a pile of old family papers by candlelight, papers that no servant had any right to touch. Sir Reginald pushed the library door open, and Brunton sprang to his feet, startled, the candlelight shining on his pale face. On the table before him lay a heap of yellowed papers, and on top of them, an ancient sheet of parchment. "So," said Sir Reginald sternly, "this is how you spend your nights, rummaging through my family's private records." Brunton tried to steady his voice. I beg your pardon, sir. I was merely reading an old document, one of great curiosity. The Musgrave ritual." "The Musgrave ritual?" repeated Sir Reginald. He took up the parchment and saw that it wasn't a prayer or poem, but a strange list of questions and answers written in faded ink. "Whose was it?" "His who is gone." "Who shall have it?" "He who will come." "Where was the sun?" "Over the oak." And so it went on, like a riddle no one could make sense of. Brunton's eyes flickered with unease. "It is only an old family custom, sir," he said quickly. "It is none of your business," Sir Reginald replied coldly. "You have betrayed my trust. You will leave this house within a week." Brunton turned white as the candle wax. "For mercy's sake, sir," he pleaded, "give me time. Let me stay a few days longer." But Sir Reginald's mind was firm. He ordered the papers locked away, and left Brunton standing in the shadow, his proud head bowed at last. The next morning, the servants whispered that the butler's door was standing open. His bed had not been slept in, and his trunk and best clothes were gone. At first Sir Reginald thought Brunton had left early, too proud to face dismissal. But as the hours passed, unease grew into alarm. Search parties were sent through the park and woods. The pond near the avenue was dragged, and every outbuilding examined, yet not a single trace of the man was found. It was as though he had vanished into the earth. One person seemed more troubled than anyone. Rachel Howells, the housemaid who had once been Brunton's sweetheart. Since their quarrel a month earlier, she had been pale and strange, but after his disappearance she broke down completely. She sobbed, raved, and finally fainted in the servants' hall. For days she lay sick in bed, watched by the other maids. Meanwhile, strange rumors drifted through the house, that Brunton had stolen something from the library, or that he had drowned himself in shame. Sir Reginald, though stern, pitied the man he had once trusted. But even he could not guess how closely the missing butler's fate was tied to the old words of the Musgrave ritual. A week had passed, and the house had begun to grow quiet again when another shock struck Hurlstone Manor. One morning, Rachel Howells's bed was found empty. The window stood open, and a cold breeze stirred the curtains. Footprints led across the dew-covered grass toward the old outbuildings at the edge of the grounds, and then disappeared. "Gone too!" cried Sir Reginald. "This place will drive us all mad." As the servants searched, someone noticed that the ancient door leading to the cellar under the manor was locked tight. No one could remember seeing it closed before, and the heavy iron key was missing. The master ordered every inch of the estate searched once more, but Rachel was never found. Only that locked door remained, silent and strange, as if hiding the secret of both disappearances. At last, desperate for answers, Sir Reginald sent for Sherlock Holmes. When Sherlock Holmes arrived at Hurlstone Manor, the November air hung cold and still around the ancient building. Sir Reginald welcomed him into the grand hall, where the light from the tall windows gleamed faintly on old armor and portraits. Holmes listened quietly as Sir Reginald told him everything: the secret reading in the library, Brunton's pleading, the vanishing of both the butler and Rachel Howells. His keen grey eyes missed nothing. He took note of each pause, each nervous glance toward the locked cellar door. "I should like to see this Musgrave ritual," said Holmes at last. Sir Reginald fetched the parchment. Holmes spread it carefully upon the library table and studied the faded questions and answers. "It sounds less like a prayer," he murmured, "and more like a set of directions." He examined Brunton's room, the library, the grounds, and even the old oak tree mentioned in the text. Wherever he went, his measuring stick and compass were in hand. "It's a curious riddle," Holmes said thoughtfully. "Your ancestors must have known what it meant once. The clue lies in their own land and sunlight." Sir Reginald could only stare. "Then you believe this ritual points to something real?" Holmes smiled faintly. "Most riddles do, Sir Reginald. We have only to follow the words where they lead." Holmes asked Sir Reginald to read the Musgrave ritual aloud exactly as it was written. The words were strange and solemn, like an ancient chant. Whose was it? His who is gone. Who shall have it? He who will come. Where was the sun? Over the oak. Where was the shadow? Under the elm. How many degrees to the north? By 10 and by 10. And so it continued, with lines about the crutch of the old sun, and the 10th from the north. Holmes listened, eyes half closed, as if seeing the scene the words described. Then he sprang up. "It's a set of directions," he cried. "Your ancestors hid something precious, and this ritual was their secret map." They stepped outside into the pale afternoon light. The oak tree mentioned in the ritual still stood, though old and gnarled. Near it was the ancient sundial, its metal worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. Holmes took his compass and measured the angles of sunlight and shadow. When the ritual says, "Where was the shadow?" it means where it fell at a certain hour, he explained. Each answer points to a place. Together, they lead us forward. He paced across the lawn, counting steps, checking directions, and marking the ground with his walking stick. Sir Reginald followed, hardly daring to breathe. At last, Holmes stopped before a patch of moss-grown paving stones near the old manor foundations. "Here," he said quietly. the 10th from the north and 10 east. It ends beneath our very feet." And when Sir Reginald looked up, he realized they were standing directly above the locked cellar door. With Sir Reginald's permission, Holmes fetched the old cellar key from the butler's room, where it had been found after much searching. Rust creaked in the lock as they turned it, and the heavy door swung open with a groan that echoed through the passage. A flight of worn stone steps led down into the darkness below the manor. The air was damp and cold, and their lantern light showed walls green with age. At the bottom lay a narrow chamber filled with dust and cobwebs, as though no one had entered it for centuries. Holmes examined the floor carefully. In one corner, a heap of fresh earth had been piled up, and beside it stood a spade. Nearby was an old wooden chest, its lid half open, the hinges eaten with rust. Inside glimmered dull bits of gold and silver, an ancient crown, bent and blackened with age. "The crown of the old kings of England," Holmes whispered, "hidden here since the time of the Civil War." But another sight froze them where they stood. Behind the chest was a small square opening in the wall, scarcely large enough for a man to crawl through. Within it lay the still form of Brunton, the missing butler. A lantern beside him burned out long ago. Holmes knelt beside the body. "He found the treasure," he said softly, "but someone locked the door and left him to die. Rachel Howells must have held the key, and her revenge." Sir Reginald turned pale. "Then both secrets are buried here, his greed and her sorrow." Holmes bowed his head. "And the Musgrave ritual has told its last tale." When they returned to the light of day, Sir Reginald listened as Holmes gently pieced the story together. Brunton, clever but greedy, had solved the secret of the Musgrave ritual, and discovered the hiding place of the ancient crown. Rachel Howells, broken-hearted by his deceit, must have followed him into the cellar, taken the key, and locked him in. Then fled in madness, never to be seen again. "The treasure was found," Holmes said, "but at a terrible cost." Sir Reginald buried the poor butler in the churchyard and placed the royal relic in a museum where it could rest in safety. The old cellar was sealed forever. As Holmes prepared to leave, Sir Reginald thanked him quietly. Holmes only smiled. "It was your family's riddle that solved itself, Sir Reginald. I merely listened to the words of the past." And thus ended the mystery of the Musgrave ritual.